Cooking is an activity which leaves us with a great sense of satisfaction as we enjoy fulfilling and delicious food. It is no surprise then that it would become the subject of a video game. Burger Time was among the first attempts to turn food into a video game. Heavily inspired by Donkey Kong, players would climb up and down ladders to step on ingredients until they stacked together to form a burger. To defend themselves against the evil food who stand in their way, players could either sprinkle pepper to stun them, or drop burger ingredients to trap them. This is the optimal way to play Burger Time, as ingredients drop additional floors based on the number of enemies you catch with them. While basic by design, Burger Time is still an intriguing look at the beginnings of the food game. If you're hungry for a score chaser, then this one's alright.
The last thing you'd want in your Burger King burger is someone's foot fungus, but as it turns out, that might be what you get.
Cinematic adventures are a modern staple as the genre has rapidly evolved to offer players blockbuster experiences. These games utilize techniques commonly seen in cinematic storytelling to create emotional connections with the player. Planned set pieces and cutscenes were nothing new, but it took a long time for a game to come around which masterfully demonstrated their potential on the level of Eric Shahi's Another World. Play is functional at best, existing to serve the story it wishes to tell. Lester is no hero, merely a victim of circumstance. He clumsily traverses the alien world, narrowly avoiding death by the skin of his teeth. A humanly formidable protagonist surviving in an oppressive setting. The use of ambience and lack of user interface assisted its visual storytelling and influenced the look and feel of the game. Another World isn't the flashiest game, but it continues to be celebrated for good reason. Games open doors to activities we dream of one day experiencing firsthand. Some seek the rush of speeding down highways in a Ferrari, others yearn to see their favourite team win a major title. For some it is as simple as owning a game studio. Kairosoft's game Dev Story released in the West when iOS gaming was still in its infancy. Dev Story was perfect for the platform thanks to its click-based interface and simple but addictive gameplay. The game is more business management than game development, but regardless, there is a thrill in seeing your studio come together to create a mega hit. Seeing scores and sales numbers soar was an exciting payoff as your studio steadily grows in size, renown and income. It has spawned numerous imitators, but Story will always be the game of choice for the game developer fantasy. There are few games that can be described as flawless or perfect, but Tetris may be one of them. The series has seen tweaks and adjustments in the 30 plus years since its creation, but at its core Tetris is never changing. It is the same game now it was back then. Tetris still manages to find new ways to appeal with unique takes on the classic game being released regularly. Tetris is like wine, it remains good with age and has been the subject of many refinements as new flavours and varieties are produced. This is a testament to the universal appeal of Tetris. Everyone has a favourite. Its rules need little explanation, fill lines are clear blocks. A concept so simple and clear that anyone can play it from children all the way to the elderly. Tetris is truly the universal video game.
Paris in the fall, the last months of the year and the end of the millennium. The city holds many memories for me, of cafes, of music, of love, and of death.
The point-and-click adventure has long been a staple of PC gaming and for the longest time was the premier go-to for video game storytelling. For many, Revolution Software's Broken Sword was the game that begun their relationship with that genre. Broken Sword tells the story of George Stobart, an American tourist whose life would be changed forever after being caught in an explosion outside a Paris cafe. This event would take George on a journey across Europe as he finds himself in the middle of a conflict dating back centuries. Its beautifully drawn backgrounds give Paris a colourful vibrance, while the charming and witty dialogue endears you to George and the characters he meets on his journey. Its puzzle design feels logical and does little to break the flow and immersion of the experience. Broken Sword is an essential adventure and the perfect starting point for newcomers.
What are you talking about?
You're trespassing. Come out of there, immediately.
That's what I'm trying to do. Give me your hand.
I'm going in. Wish me luck, fella.
Satire has long been the comedian's weapon of choice for mockery as conventions degrade into cliché. Conker's Bad Fur Day could have only existed on the N64 as years of platforming collectathons took their toll on players who had grown sick of the genre. It may have looked the part, but Conker was everything those games were not. It was crude, violent, and often in bad taste. Nintendo were having none of Rare's rebellion and refused to publish it. Conker was a true video game comedy. It wasn't just a series of gags and one-liners. The mechanics, design and set pieces were the joke themselves. Without its comedy, Conker was nothing more than a merely good platformer in an era of excellent ones. Love it or loathe it, Conker is a one-of-a-kind game, the kind video games are better off for having. It's an underappreciated masterpiece. The mid-80s were an exciting period as progressions in game design and technology began to take the medium in new directions. Not looking to fall behind, studios would take their games into uncharted territory. Pac-Land is an often forgotten piece in the evolution of the side-scrolling platformer as Namco expanded the Pac-Man universe while retaining the elements that made the character famous. This experiment saw players race Pac-Man through a series of levels in a frantic and speed-focused game. Pac-Land would introduce the Pac-Man we know today, with the long nose, orange gloves and red boots becoming permanent fixtures. Its graphics have this hilarious charm to them, resembling something drawn in Microsoft Paint. It's an aesthetic unique to Pac-Land and has helped preserve its iconic status. Pac-Land continues to hold a place in people's hearts and has been lovingly recreated as a stage in Super Smash Bros. I still remember the first time I saw Unreal Tournament. It was fast, explosive, violent. The loudness of the game permeated throughout the room and I could not help but be enamored by it. Those memories stayed until I was old enough to buy my first gaming PC. I would quickly learn firsthand that the game was the real deal. There were no false expectations here. Unreal was pure. What I saw was exactly what I would end up getting. Take the cathartic graphic violence away and the game was no worse for it. It was an excellent amalgamation of everything the FPS had achieved in its golden age, containing a level of flexibility few games have matched since. On the dawn of its 20th anniversary, Unreal Tournament continues to be one of the greatest PC games ever created. Age has done little to dull its edge.
Begin. Line.
The early 2010s saw independent video games explode thanks to platforms such as Steam offering easy and convenient ways for developers to self-publish their works. Indie games were taking the world by storm as their friendly cost, system requirements, and entry barriers made them easily accessible for almost anyone. Super Hexagon is an exemplary case as its tricky simplicity, minimalistic art direction, and blaring chiptune soundtrack created a tightly designed concept game. Its simple but difficult design haunted players' focus in short bursts and immediately brought them into a flow experience that drew upon their pleasant frustration to keep them coming back for more. Its satisfying play comes from bettering your own personal best. It is clean fun that makes the player feel like they have achieved something. Super Hexagon may be basic, but it's more than worth experiencing.
Game over.
War. What is it good for? While in the 80s it was good for many things as far as pop culture was concerned, it would be an era famous for its sensationalism of war, as films such as Rambo captivated audiences. The Cold War was ongoing, and while hard to imagine now, the possibility of nuclear annihilation was on the minds of many. Missile Command today may just be another game, but in 1980 it was a digital simulation of people's most feared hypothetical scenario. What if the missiles were launched? Would the military be able to intercept them? How many lives would be saved? How many would be lost? Who decides who lives and who dies? These are all questions one can ponder when playing Missile Command, and the answer is always the same. No one survives. The game ends when the cities are inevitably destroyed. The only winning move is to not play. A chilling concept. A great thrill in retro gaming is the discovery of lost classics. I found Thunder Force 4 at a boot sale, having only the box to go on. Turns out I had only discovered one of the best games released on the Sega Mega Drive. Thunder Force 4 is a side-scrolling shmup in the vein of Gradius. Players can change fly speed at will, shifting gears to suit the situation. Each weapon has its own distinct behaviour. When you die, you only lose whichever weapons you had equipped, mitigating death penalties and frustration. The outstanding presentation could be credited to the exquisite use of parallax scrolling and detailed sprites. It's so dense, every single image has so many things going on. The soundtrack personifies the Sega Mega Drive, with its hard rock vibe perfectly suiting its design. You would be hard-tasked to find a better shmup than this, a classic of the genre. Hideki Kamiya was not one to rest on his laurels. Devil May Cry modernised beat-em-ups and pioneered a new genre. And yet, despite DMC's excellence, Kamiya was dissatisfied. With the genre rapidly evolving, many felt DMC had become outdated and archaic. Kamiya could not let this stand. The outcome of Kamiya's stubbornness would be Bayonetta, a title whose masterful execution modernised the same design which had made DMC revolutionary 8 years earlier. Bayonetta was agile and could run circles around enemies in ways Dante could not. This improved combat flexibility gave players more options for asserting themselves. Crowd control was no longer a simple case of comboing into juggles. Defense was now heavily valued thanks to counter hits, rich time and resilient foes who could power through your attacks. Bayonetta's harmony of elegant combat and tight level design put Platinum Games on the map as the premier studio for action games. Its creation would turn Shigeru Miyamoto from a talented designer into the most famous video game creator to have ever lived. It would be one of the first examples of video game specialization, with each development team member having their own assigned role. It would be heralded as the saviour of the American industry following the crash of 1983. Its success would put it among the best-selling games of all time, as its heroes would become cultural icons. It would influence the creation of countless games, many of whom wish to surpass its greatness. It was the game that made Nintendo the giant it is today. These are just a small sample of the many things it has done for the medium. This is not a video about Super Mario Bros. This is a video about what its existence means to gaming. You don't need me to tell you to play it. Jamalami was Nana Onsha's follow-up to their musical mega hit, with Parappa stepping aside for a new kind of hero. Lamy was in many ways similar to Parappa. Parappa's journey was about belief in what it means to be a man. He can only solve problems when he believes in his ability to act. Lamy is a musician who can only express herself through guitar. Without it, she is overcome by a crippling shyness and lack of confidence. The only thing stopping her is her own doubt. By visualizing activities as guitar play, she learns that there is no difference. It's all in the mind. Jamalami expands on Parappa from songwriting and game design all the way to its absurdity. It wouldn't be nearly as successful as Parappa, but it was in many respects the superior game. By now, many know of Symphony of the Night. It allowed Castlevania to survive as it struggled to find its footing in the third dimension, and it was all thanks to Koji Igarashi. Order of Ecclesia would be Igarashi's swan song at Konami as his team threw away convention to create something unique to the series. Shinoa is not a Belmont, nor is she related to them. Shinoa is the vessel for Dominus, incarnations of Dracula's power. By absorbing magic glyphs through the brand on her back, Shinoa looks to use Dominus to destroy Dracula once and for all. Her powers bring a fresh take to combat as glyphs can be fused into new weapons. The world map is a welcome change and builds the player up to the challenges awaiting them at the end of their journey. Ecclesia couldn't top Soten, but it is a reminder of why Bloodstained has been so successful.